With the ratings for Season 3 of Star Trek The Original Series falling even faster into a black hole, the decision was made to cancel Star Trek once and for all. But what's the story behind the finale of this cult-creating phenomena? Well, today we find out. Hello and welcome to Backtrek, a web series that focuses on the background information on any given topic in Star Trek. In this episode, we're taking a look at the final episode of Star Trek The Original Series, Turnabout Intruder, to better understand its place in Star Trek history. Turnabout Intruder was never intended to be the final episode of Star Trek. Up until this point, though the cast and crew had suspected Star Trek might be cancelled after its third season, no one had expected the cancellation to happen so quickly and with such force. Several other episodes were well into production to continue on the season, including the next episode entitled The Joy Machine, which was scheduled not only to begin filming the next week, but also to be William Shatner's directorial debut. More about that episode in a moment. Turnabout Intruder was filmed from December 31st, 1968 to January 9th, 1969, and would actually go one day over its filming schedule. But during the fourth day of filming, Gene Roddenberry would be informed by the powers that be that Star Trek was at an end, and that Turnabout Intruder, for better or for worse, would be the last time the Enterprise engaged its warp drive. Gene was distraught over Star Trek's cancellation, even though he was not surprised by it. He himself was still banking on at least 3 or 4 more episodes to collect a check for, and wandering aimlessly, he would eventually end up on set where he made the decision to tell William Shatner of the show's cancellation. The rest of the cast and crew would be informed at the end of the day by associate producer Greg Peters. Shatner, for his part, was also very upset about the news. Suddenly, he was out of a job, and without the directing credit that would have opened so many new doors for the ambitious actor. The episode he was to direct, The Joy Machine, was originally outlined by Theodore Sturgeon and written by Meyer Dolinsky. Originally submitted for the second season, it dealt with the population of a Federation colony getting addicted to a sophisticated machine that stimulated the pleasure centers of the brain. The concept was that a planetary population would reward their workers with hours of joy in exchange for hours of work. Sturgeon's story, though, was a think piece and lacked any action-adventure, and after rewrites would see Spock becoming addicted to the Joy Machine as the catalyst for the episode. If you ever wanted to check out and get a good feeling for what this episode might have been like, well, you're in luck, as in 1996, James Gunn would take the script and write a novel based on it, also entitled The Joy Machine. As for William Shatner, however, there was also a far more human element to his sadness. Over the decades, many things have come to light about Shatner's behavior on set. Feuds and discords between various secondary actors and Shatner would become common knowledge and a part of Star Trek's history. But things are never as simple as they appear, and Shatner is certainly the poster boy for complexity. As Shatner tells it, "Suddenly, I was out of a job, but more than that, I had lost my second family. You do become a family when you work with people almost every day over the space of years. You have both good times and bad times, and in the end, as a family of actors, you hope you've created something wonderful and enlightening, something to survive the test of time. But when it's over, you wake up the next day and realize it's over, you start missing it, and the people you've spent so much time with. It's almost as though you're grieving over its death, and that happened to me. I was depressed, lonely, and suddenly jobless." Pro football player O.J. Simpson, who had just begun his acting career, actually visited the set on that day, given the grand tour by none other than Gene Roddenberry himself. Gene told Simpson of Star Trek's cancellation, but swore him to secrecy, as only Shatner knew about it at that point. Simpson was mesmerized by Shatner's performance, and commented to Gene about how professional Shatner was being about the whole situation, and Gene, turning to Simpson, stared at him for a moment, and with clear sadness in his voice said, you have just seen a true actor at work. A little bit of Trek trivia for you all here is in regards to the filming of the episode itself. One of the first scenes of the episode, the infamous transfer of Dr. Lester into Captain Kirk's body and vice versa, surprisingly, was actually the last scene filmed for Turnabout Intruder. Even as filming was being wrapped up, crews had already begun to dismantle the Starship Enterprise. Many of the sets and their components would simply end up in the trash heap, while many of the props, costumes, and models would be picked over by cast and crew for their own little take-home souvenirs. As previously stated, filming for this episode went one day over schedule, and this can be put down to two factors. First, after being informed of the show's cancellation, the cast and crew weren't in a real hurry to end the show. But second, William Shatner and director Herb Wallerstein did not get along, and would clash on set. While filming this episode, Wallerstein directed Shatner to exit the scene they were filming through an open wall, the wall having been removed simply to allow close-up shots needed to be filmed. Shatner, a stickler for his art, knew that it had been a well-established fact, not only in other episodes but also the one that they were just in, that there was a wall there, and so he refused to follow the direction, causing the two men to argue back and forth before taking a time out, then to finally resume the filming. In the end, I can understand completely Shatner's position. As a YouTuber, I've noticed how fandom will jump, rather harshly, on the littlest mistake made by me in any of my own videos. A slight mispronunciation due to my own accent or simply not knowing how to pronounce a person's name becomes the be-all and end-all of some commenters' lives. This alone, good Trinary, is why I research everything I say and do as best as I can to attempt to get the information as correct as I can. Because put simply, I don't want to argue nonsense, and apparently neither does Shatner. Wallerstein directed 4 episodes of Star Trek, all from Season 3. The Tholian Web, That Which Survives, Whom Gods Destroy, and of course this one, Turnabout Intruder. Wallerstein had begun working for 20th Century Fox as Senior Vice President of Feature Film Production in 1978, overseeing such productions as Alien, 9 to 5, and The Verdict. Herb's career would be cut short though in 1985 when he was murdered by his housekeeper, Mayor Melendez Lopez, who beat him with a baseball bat, then, trying to cover up her crime, dumped his body in a car and set that vehicle on fire. At her trial, Lopez claimed that she acted out of self-defense, having been assaulted by Wallerstein on numerous occasions including that night, and with reasonable doubt created within the jury, she was found not guilty of any charges. Herb was killed on September 27, 1985. He was 59 years old. The story for this episode was actually conjured up by none other than Gene Roddenberry himself, though the actual script would be fleshed out by Arthur Singer. The fact that this is a Roddenberry story is really no surprise to me at all. Roddenberry has become well known for his misogynistic and over-sexualized views of women, and I can clearly picture him saying something like, "You know what would be a great story? Having Captain Kirk switch bodies with a sexy woman. Yeah, that's it. Let me type up a one-page story outline for you." Arthur Singer, however, would take this nonsense idea and actually write an okay episode around it. And probably, if Turnabout Intruder wasn't the final episode of the series, it'd probably be considered an average episode for Season 3. Sandra Smith would transfer to the Enterprise as Dr. Janice Lester, and Smith still holds the title of the only female ever to play Captain Kirk. Unlike most guest actors of Star Trek, Smith would only have a short career in television, with only 28 acting credits to her name until she retired from television in 1975. It should be noted, though, that at the time Smith was a well-known Broadway actress as well. She is currently married and living in Minnesota. Reviewing the episode several times for this video, I was actually struck by how well she played the role. It's truly unfortunate that she didn't continue her acting career. Harry Landers would join the cast as Dr. Coleman. Unlike Smith, Landers would have an extensive acting career right up until the late 1970s, when his acting gigs became few and far between until his acting retirement in 1991. Landers died on September 10, 2017. A little bit more Trek trivia for you all here is in regards to Lieutenant Uhura. In this episode, the gorgeous and competent communications officer is missing with no explanation given as to her whereabouts. The real-life reason, though, for her absence was Nichelle Nichols had a singing gig that week and had gotten permission to be away from the show. She was scheduled to return for the next episode, but of course the series was cancelled. Reception for this episode was mixed at best for many reasons. First, the episode was originally scheduled to be aired on the 28th of March, 1969, but ended up being preempted by the news coverage of President Dwight D. Eisenhower's death. As a result, the episode would be rescheduled, oddly for over 2 months later on June 3rd, 1969, and by that time, fandom knew of Star Trek's cancellation, but didn't know of its final episode, not tuning in for its initial broadcast. Second, and I'd be completely remiss if I didn't mention this, the tone of the episode at the time was rather sexist. Brenton J. Malin probably best explains the reasoning behind why this episode is so sexist. Turnabout Intruder is a reactionary response to the radical feminism of the late 1960s. Dr. Lester is a parody and condemnation of feminism, evoking a fear of powerful, power-hungry women. The message of this episode is clear. Women want to kill men and take their jobs, but ultimately, they can't handle them. In 2017, Turnabout Intruder was ranked as the 4th worst episode of the entire Star Trek franchise by Screen Rant, while Den of Geeks ranked this episode as 7th worst episode of Star Trek. Surprisingly, however, there are those fans who do enjoy this episode, most notably Bijou Tremble, who was very impressed by this episode and had this to say. It was a very good episode. It might have even won an Emmy for William Shatner's acting if its air date hadn't have been changed to after the Emmy submission deadline. Although Turnabout Intruder is officially the last episode of the series, many fans have chosen its previous episode, All Our Yesterdays, as the true finale, as that episode has a stardate which takes place after Turnabout Intruder. But, like it or leave it, Turnabout Intruder would signal the end of the original series, but only the beginning of the franchise as a whole. And solely because this is the last episode of the original series, it certainly has earned its place in Star Trek history.
What does your telepathic mind tell you now?
I believe you.
Agony will soon pass as it has for me. Spock, give it up.
I shall not withdraw a single charge that I have made, and I shall do everything in my power against you.
It is mutiny! Dr. McCoy, sorry, but I'm going to have to take you off the case.
On this ship, my medical authority is final. I won't allow it.
It's done.
Security guard!
Attention all personnel. First Officer Spock has been placed under arrest on the charge of mutiny.
Then, Doctor, that's the time we move against him. We'll have to take over the ship.
We're talking about mutiny, Scotty. That's enough. We know what was said.
Enough to convict you of conspiracy with mutineers. And you're so charged. The sentence, death. Execution will be immediate.
Thank you for watching today's episode of Backtrack. What do you think of Turnabout Intruder? Do you see it as the majority of fandom does? As a lackluster, sexist piece of trash of the original series? Well, leave your comments in the section below. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel, hitting that little bell icon so you won't miss a single video we release. Want to help me transfer back into my normal body? Then consider becoming a channel patron. The link to our Patreon account is in the description below. Thanks again for watching. Live long and prosper.